The stillness you're feeling is not a failure. It's a pause button you've been holding without knowing. Some days life looks frozen on the same frame. The same argument plays out in a different room. The same worry dresses itself in a new headline. The same ache in the chest returns like an old song you never meant to put on repeat. It's easy to believe the universe is being stubborn, that fate has anchored you to one shoreline and called it destiny. But look closer. What seems like fate is often a habit of attention. The mind checks, measures, verifies, then checks again like a security guard who never goes off duty. In physics, they call this the Zeno Effect. Observe a delicate system too often and you hold it in place. In life, it looks like trying so hard to control every outcome that nothing new has the oxygen to form. I spent years living that way, counting instead of listening, tightening instead of trusting. I wanted progress, so I kept opening the oven door to see if the bread had risen. I wanted love, so I read every text like a weather report. I wanted healing, so I scanned my body for pain until pain was the only channel left. And the truth is, I wasn't cursed. I was overmeasured. I had turned my awareness into a pair of pliers. And consciousness is not a tool to clamp. It's the space things grow in. When we clutch at reality, we shrink it. Picture a river you're trying to force upstream with your hands. The more you splash and push, the colder and heavier the water feels. But when you stand back and let it run, it finds a soft current around the stones and carries fallen leaves to places they could never go on their own. Presence works like that. It doesn't demand. It doesn't wrestle the moment into submission. It widens the banks so the current can discover its path. The modern mystics had different names for this. Some spoke of the power of assumption, letting a feeling of the wished-for state rest inside you until the world catches the scent. Some spoke of alignment, tuning your inner station to the song you want to hear. Others called it awareness itself, this open, luminous field that doesn't argue with what is field. Different words for one movement, releasing the white-knuckle grip and letting consciousness do the organizing that control never could. So how do we stop freezing our lives with our own gaze? Begin by noticing the way you look, not what you look at the way you look. Is your attention a searchlight hunting for threats, or a lantern warming the room? Do you check your progress like a judge with a clipboard, or greet it like a gardener who knows seeds sprout in the dark? The same awareness that can hold you hostage can also free you. Depending on the quality of your seeing, there is a gentle art to this. You set an intention, the way a captain sets a heading clear enough to steer by, soft enough to let the winds help. Then you live your day, as if the soil already contains the harvest. Because it does. You still send the email. You still take the walk. You still drink water and answer the phone. But beneath the errands, there's a quiet agreement with life. I will not pry the cocoon open. I will not dig up the roots to prove they're growing. I will let the hidden work remain hidden until it isn't. You've likely tasted this before, those rare mornings when you don't rush yourself. And somehow, the traffic parts, the right person calls, the words arrive on their own. That isn't luck. That is coherence, your inner rhythm matching a rhythm larger than you. The interference of resistance drops, and possibilities that were always present begin to resolve into form. Think of it as fog lifting from a landscape that never moved. And if you're thinking, but I've tried to let go, and nothing changed, I understand. Surrender is not another technique to force an outcome. It's not pretending to be calm while you stare at the clock. It is a real softening in the belly, a loosening in the jaw, a willingness to let this breath be enough. It's allowing the body to remember what the mind forgets, that life knows how to live through you. The way a melody knows how to move through a flute. The instrument does not chase the note. It becomes open enough to be played. There is also language to consider. The phrases you repeat are small tuning forks. I am stuck calls one world into focus. I am becoming calls another. You don't have to declare fireworks. Whisper something true and kind. I am available to the next good step. Feel how that sentence sits in your chest, like a door quietly unlatched. When your words carry the vibration of gentleness, your experience begins to take that shape less brittle, more breathable. I'm not asking you to abandon responsibility. I'm inviting you to exchange strain for stewardship, to become the keeper of your attention rather than its prisoner, to give your life the mercy of intervals, moments with no measurement, where you let silence do what only silence can do. In those small, uncounted spaces, the system you call me slips out of its freeze and remembers how to move. So if today feels paused, you don't have to force a play button. Try something kinder. Put a hand over your heart for a few quiet seconds. Soften your eyes the way you would when you look at someone you love. Breathe as if breath is the first miracle, because it is. Then ask, softly, what would I notice if I weren't trying to fix this? Watch how the room deepens. Listen for the next honest inch. Often, it arrives like a bird's shadow, a signal of life. You don't have to catch to be blessed by. This is where the film unfreezes, not with a shove, but with a shift of gaze, not by forcing the river, but by becoming the bank that lets it sing. Stay here with me. We'll step into the scene again, not as anxious observers pressing the world to perform, but as conscious participants allowing it to bloom. And in that allowing, new frames appear quietly, faithfully, until the story moves again. 1. 2 ways of looking: freeze or evolve. Start with the way you see. When anxiety is at the wheel, attention becomes a measuring device. It scans the room for what might go wrong, tallies every detail, and files reports on what still isn't good enough. That kind of seeing feels active, even responsible, like you're doing your job as a grown adult. But underneath the effort is a quiet bargain. If I keep checking, I'll stay safe. So you check the bank app again. You read an old message one more time to detect a tone. You stand in front of the mirror hunting for proof that you're improving. The mind keeps saying, just once more, and every once more is another small freeze. Reality doesn't move because you're not letting it. You've turned your gaze into a clamp. Presence is a different animal. It isn't passive, it is permission. Instead of interrogating the moment, you sit beside it the way you'd sit beside an old friend. Your breath unhurried, your shoulders lowered, your eyes not so sharp that they cut. You are not insisting that what's here should be otherwise. You're meeting it as it is. And that meeting opens a small seam. In that seam, life begins to reorganize, often quietly, like a tide turning before anyone notices. I learned this the hard way. There was a season when I measured everything's steps, calories, hours of work, the number of times I woke at night. Progress became a courtroom, and I was both defendant and judge. On paper, it looked disciplined. Inside, it was a shrinking room. I didn't realize that every time I said, "Show me proof right now," I was interrupting the very process that needed time and warmth to unfold. A loaf doesn't rise while the oven door is yanked open. A bone doesn't knit faster because you glare at the X-ray. My attention, so proud of its vigilance, was keeping me stuck. Anxious seeing is narrow. It hunts for threats and finds them, even in harmless places. Presence is wide. It notices the threat and the window and the way the light falls on the floorboards. From that wideness, the nervous system hears a different story. We are not in a burning building. The heart takes one longer exhale. The jaw eases. What you call mindset is often just this felt shift, less compression. More room. In more room, options appear. In more room, you remember you have a choice. Everyday life gives simple examples. Think of watching a seedling. If you press your thumb to the soil every hour, you don't speed growth, you bruise it. If you check your phone during every conversation, the relationship does not deepen, it thins. If you step on the scale after each meal, your body becomes a problem to solve rather than a home to inhabit. That is freezing. Evolving looks like a gardener's rhythm. Clear intention, steady tending, spacious intervals, and the grace to let unseen work stay unseen until it's ready. There is a posture to presence. It starts in the body. Feel the feet on the ground. Soften the focus of your eyes just enough that the edges of the world stop shouting. Let the breath fall all the way out. And, for a heartbeat, don't rush its return. This is not a performance. It's a small consent. From here, ask a kinder question. What is already moving that I can support? The room often answers, maybe the tension in your neck invites a stretch. Maybe the conversation asks for a slower pace. Maybe dinner can be simple tonight. These are not miracles, but they are how miracles travel on the back of ordinary kindness. Language matters too. The phrases you repeat are little thermostats. I'm stuck sets a climate. I'm in transition sets another. When anxiety looks, it names what's wrong and nails it to the wall. When presence looks, it names what's true and leaves the nail in the drawer. You don't need to chant bright slogans you don't believe. You can say something humble and accurate, like, I am learning to give things time. That sentence does not bully life. It invites it. You might ask, if I stop measuring, won't I get lazy? That's the fear talking. Presence does not cancel responsibility. It changes the fuel. Anxiety runs on adrenaline and short-term control. Presence runs on trust and steady participation. One burns you out. The other builds you up. The day you move from anxious seeing to present seeing, you still send the email. You still show up for the appointment. You still pay the bill, but you're no longer trying to drag the river upstream. You become the bank that guides the current forward. I won't pretend this shift happens overnight. Old habits call to you like familiar hallways in the dark. But each time you choose presence over panic, the hallway gets a little more light. Each time you resist the urge to poke a tender place for updates, healing gains a little momentum. Each time you greet yourself with softer eyes, something in you relaxes its grip on the same old story and gives the next chapter a chance. So today, try this before you check. Breathe before you label. Look before you brace. Soften. Imagine your attention as a lantern rather than a microscope. A lantern warms whatever it touches. A microscope pins it down. One invites movement, the other interrupts it. The same world sits before you either way. The difference is the quality of your gaze. In the end, freezing or evolving is less about circumstances and more about the hands you bring to them. Tight hands keep breaking what they mean to fix. Open hands receive what's already arriving. When anxiety looks, it says, prove yourself. When presence looks, it says, I'm here. Life hears the difference. And given a little room, it knows how to move. 2. The gardener's rhythm of looking. Growth is shy. It prefers the spaces between our glances. No one with any wisdom plants a seed and digs it up each morning to check the roots. You place it in the soil. You cover it. You give it water and a little warmth. And then this is the hard part. You step back. You trust the dark to do what the dark has always done. The miracle, if we can call it that, happens while the surface looks unchanged. The seed splits. A tender thread reaches down for anchoring, and another reaches up for light. None of this can be hurried by inspection. In fact, too much checking becomes disturbance. The soil loses its coherence. The roots lose their hold. The seedling loses its courage. Our lives obey the same gentle law. Real change is stitched together between our looks. We think progress comes from constant attention, so we keep prying at the process, refreshing the email, rehearsing the conversation, measuring the body, counting the money. We don't mean harm. We're anxious. We want proof we won't be abandoned by life. But growth asks for intervals, periods of non-measurement, that let micro shifts accumulate into something you can actually feel. Too many eyes, too often, and the tender becomes threatened. Too many hands, and the clay never sets. A gardener's rhythm is wiser tend, then trust. There's work, but it's rhythmic, not relentless. You prepare the bed with care. You choose a good seed. You water when the soil asks. Then you let the living intelligence inside the seed meet the living intelligence of the earth. Your doing becomes a collaboration instead of an intrusion. In human terms, that looks like setting a clear intention, taking the next honest action, and then letting time do its alchemy. You don't pick at the wound to see if it's healing. You keep it clean. You rest. You eat. You sit in the sun. Healing proceeds in the quiet. I remember a winter when I kept unearthing my own roots. Every afternoon I examined my progress under a microscope of self-judgment. And each evening, I felt more fragile, not less. When I finally stepped back, when I gave the work some privacy, something softened. The days stopped feeling like exams. I began to keep company with the process instead of policing it. Curiously, that's when the first green showed. Not because I tried harder, but because I interfered less. There's a quality of attention that warms rather than withers. It's not the searchlight that hunts for mistakes. It's the lantern that says, "I'm here." This kind of looking is brief and kind. You check the moisture, not the worth. You notice the direction of growth, not the distance remaining. You support what's emerging instead of interrogating it. And then this matters, you step away again. You let the unseen layers align thought with feeling. Feeling with breath, breath with action. In the language of the nervous system, your body learns safety. In the language of spirit, your field regains coherence. In the language of the garden, roots take. Even the sky teaches the same patience. Clouds move whether you watch them or not. Spring arrives without consulting your calendar. You can stand by the window and demand the first blossom open on your schedule. But the tree keeps its own time. And thank God for that. Life's intelligence isn't stubborn. It's consistent. It responds to steadiness. It opens to gentleness. It is spooked by surveillance. If you worry that fewer check-ins will make you careless, hear this. Rhythm is not neglect. Rhythm is respect. You still show up to water. You still pull the weeds of old habit when they show their heads. You still stake the young stem when a wind threatens. But you stop mistaking agitation for care. You stop confusing urgency with devotion. Your presence becomes nutrient instead of noise. There is a simple practice for days that feel brittle. Place a hand over the belly and let one breath lengthen on its own. Ask quietly, what is the smallest kindness this moment needs? Sometimes it's a glass of water. Sometimes it's a walk around the block. Sometimes it's closing the tab that keeps telling you who you aren't. Do that small thing and then step back. Give the system time to incorporate the kindness. In that pause, the micro adjustments add up. Tension loosens a thread here. Circulation brightens a thread there. And before long, the tapestry looks different without a single dramatic gesture. Language, too, is part of the tending. Swap. Why isn't it happening yet for something is taking shape? One question pokes the soil, the other warms it. Replace. I have to monitor this with, I'll visit again at dusk. You're teaching your nervous system to trust a cadence. You're teaching your mind that not everything grows under supervision. And when doubt comes, as it will, remember the nature of roots. They work in secret. They work in the dark. They spread by listening to the minerals and the moisture, not by performing for the sun. Your life has roots like that. They don't need your glare. They need your shelter. So let the hours between your glances lengthen. Let your care be deep, but not constant. Faithful, but not fussy. Tend. Then trust. Water. Then wait. Look. Then leave. Give the invisible its turn. And one ordinary morning, Often when you finally stop checking there, it is the tender green at the surface. Proof that the world has been busy loving you back all along. 3. Observation and the collapse of the wave. A single name can shrink a whole sky. In the subatomic world, a particle isn't one thing until we look. It lives as a cloud of possibilities. A soft, maybe reaching in many directions. Then observation happens, and that soft cloud folds into one outcome. Physicists call it wave function collapse. You and I don't live in a laboratory, but we feel a version of this every day. The moment we stamp a fixed label on ourselves, I'm the anxious one, I'm the failure, I'm too old, I'm always the rescuer, the wide field of who we could be narrows to one familiar corridor. We have measured ourselves with an old instrument, and the reading locks us into the same old orbit. I learned this by watching my own language betray me. On mornings when I whispered, "I'm exhausted," I moved like a person who had already decided there was no room for energy. When I said, "I'm bad with money," every small choice bent toward proof. When I told the story, I always attract people who hurt me. I began to scan for harm and overlooked kindness at my doorstep. My observation wasn't neutral. It selected a version of reality and then defended it. The label seemed honest after all. It matched my past, but it was also a verdict that sentenced the future to repeat the same sentence. Here's the quiet danger: labels arrive wearing the clothes of safety. We think if we define ourselves tightly, life will be less messy. And for a moment, it is. The problem is that safety bought with self-reduction ages into a prison. The me we keep measuring becomes the only me we're allowed to meet. The world obliges our description. Friends repeat back the adjectives we've handed them. Work agrees to keep our role small. Even the body cooperates with the script, tightening around the words we keep saying. If this sounds grim, breathe. Collapse is not the end of the story. It's a cue. In physics, if you stop measuring every second, the system evolves again. In life, if you soften your gaze, if you wrest the old definitions, possibility returns like light slipping under a door. You don't have to throw away your history. You only need to stop treating it as a ruler you press against every minute of the present. The past is a teacher, not a tape measure. There is a gentler way to look. Instead of hard nouns, try living verbs. Instead of "I am broken," I feel the truth, I am mending. Instead of "I am stuck," try "I am pausing between moves." Language like this doesn't pretend. It allows. It leaves space for the living parts of you to keep moving. You haven't lied to yourself. You've simply refused to hold the moment under a microscope until it can no longer breathe. Think of a camera lens. Tight focus is useful for a close-up, but if you never widen the aperture, you miss the horizon, the light shifting on the water, the path just to your left. Many of us live with the focus jammed to problem, and then we are surprised that all we can see is evidence of trouble. Softening the focus isn't denial. It's granting the rest of reality permission to appear. When you allow more of the frame, new actions suggest themselves: a phone call you were too tense to make, a walk you didn't think would help, a line of forgiveness you thought you couldn't say. I once spoke with a woman who called herself the difficult daughter. She had earned that name through years of argument and distance, and the family repeated it until it was the only introduction she knew. We didn't try to disprove the past. We let it be one chapter among many. She began to observe, not "I am difficult," but "I am learning to speak without armor." The first few weeks, nothing outside changed. Then a small shift: she paused before correcting her mother and asked a question instead. A week later, she sent a short note: "I'm practicing warmth." Months passed. The label softened. The relationship did dine. 2. What changed? Not a miracle, an observation. She stopped collapsing into a single identity and allowed the field of who I can be with my mother to widen. There's a bodily component to this, and it matters. Labels live in muscle as much as in thought. When you hear yourself say the old name, "I'm the one who never finishes. I'm the weak link," notice what your body does. The shoulders hitch. The breath shortens. The chest caves a little. Before you argue with the thought, tend to the collapse in the body. Lengthen the exhale until the floor under your feet returns. Feel your hands. Let the jaw soften. The nervous system hears this as permission to reopen. When the body re-enters the present, the mind has more room to choose a kinder sentence. You do not have to become a stranger to yourself to be free. You only have to become a better witness. A witness doesn't deny facts. A witness includes more of them. Yes, I've failed here, and I'm faithful in other places. Yes, I've been afraid, and I'm also brave enough to be here today. This and is a hinge that opens the door. It changes observation from judgment to awareness. Judgment collapses. Awareness contains. If you want to practice, keep it small and human. Once each day, catch a label as it rises, and add a soft qualifier for now. I'm overwhelmed for now. I'm lonely for now. I'm behind for now. The two extra words do not erase pain. They free the future. They remind the mind that the scene is still unfolding. They let the wave breathe again. And when you forget, as we all do, return without drama, say, "There I go," measuring myself into a corner. Smile a little at the old habit. Step to the window. Find one unarguable piece of goodness in the frame. A patch of light. A bird. The way steam curls from your tea. Let your attention rest there long enough to feel your chest widen a fraction. That wideness is your life leaving the lab and re-entering the meadow. You are not obligated to collapse into yesterday's name. The world is larger than the story you wrote when you were frightened. At any quiet moment, you can ease your grip on the ruler, loosen the knot of an old observation, and meet yourself as a field. Again, messy, merciful, full of maybes. From that field, you don't have to force a new life. You only have to allow one. 4. Breaking the time loop. Begin here. The present is not your past wearing a new coat. Most of us don't notice when we press replay. We look at today through yesterday's fingerprints, and the mind quietly supplies the same captions. This is the part where I get ignored. This is the moment everything falls apart. This is who I am in this story. It feels practical experience guiding us, but often it's a form of sleep. We don't meet what's in front of us. We meet a memory. And when memory takes over the lens, the day becomes a museum, carefully cataloged, climate-controlled, and lifeless. There's a softer way. Let the present be new, even if only by an inch. Think of a song you've played too many times. Eventually, you stop hearing it. The notes become wallpaper. But when a musician slows the tempo or changes one chord, your attention wakes. The same melody breathes. Breaking the time loop is like that, a subtle change in how you listen. Not a performance, not a declaration. Just a willingness to loosen yesterday's conclusions and let today have its own weather. Here is something I learned the long way, interpreting now through then, was my nervous system's attempt to protect me. If yesterday stung, it assumes today will sting too. And it braces. That bracing becomes prophecy. Shoulders lift. Eyes narrow. Breath turns shallow. I miss the gentle hand offered because I'm scanning for the slap. I miss the open door because I'm rehearsing how to defend myself against a closed one. The past is not the enemy. Clinging to it is. So, I began with the body. When I noticed old commentary arriving, here we go again. I let the exhale lengthen until the stomach softened. I placed one palm on the sternum, one on the belly, and waited for any warmth at all. In that small bodily present, the mental past lost authority. The scene brightened a shade. We can practice this in very ordinary places. At the kitchen table, where the same disagreement threatens to start, try pausing before the script speaks. Feel the weight of the chair. Notice something unarguable and new. The exact color of morning light on the cup. The timing of the kettle's sigh. Then ask a simpler question than the one you usually ask, not, "How do I win this?" but, "How can I stay kind and clear for the next 60 seconds?" The script doesn't know what to do with a question that fresh. It loosens. Or take work. You open your laptop with the familiar dread. "Mondays always crush me." Let that sentence finish itself. And then add 2 softer words until now. You haven't denied the past. You've kept the gate open. Next, choose one action small enough to succeed without adrenaline. Reply to a single email with warmth. Rename a chaotic file. Drink water before solving the big thing. The timeline adjusts to fit an act you can actually complete. Momentum doesn't need drums. It needs honesty. Language is a time machine, and we can use it to travel forward. When you say, "I already know how this ends," you have left the present. Trade it for, "I'm curious how this wants to unfold." Curiosity doesn't erase risk. It reintroduces oxygen. It makes space for the detail you've never noticed, the response you've never tried, the help you've never accepted. We don't need to force a new timeline. We need to stop auditioning for the old one. There is grief in this, too, and we should honor it. Some pasts are heavy. Some stories carved grooves in the body that memory simply follows. Breaking the loop doesn't mean pretending harm was harmless. It means you stop letting harm be your metronome. You let the past be past, informed by it. Yes, but not enslaved to it. You can say, "That happened, and I'm still permitted to grow." The "and" is important. It widens the corridor so that healing can walk beside truth. I once watched a man step out of an old loop at a bus stop. He had always assumed strangers were threats. Life had taught him that. A woman nearby fumbled her bags, and a carton of eggs began to slide. His body tensed the usual reading of danger, but then he noticed the ridiculous grace of a single egg, spinning but not falling. He laughed. The laugh surprised him. It cut the wire between reflex and reality. He caught the egg, and the woman's eye. They shared a human moment, not dramatic, not cinematic. New. That's all breaking the loop needed that day. 1 inch of unprogrammed humanity. If you need a doorway into this, try the fresh edge. The fresh edge is the smallest detail of now that doesn't match yesterday, any sliver of novelty your senses can trust. The sound of a distant lawnmower, the coolness of the spoon in your tea, the exact way your name looks on today's envelope. When you rest attention there for a breath or two, the mind's insistence, same old, loses ground. The present starts to show its face. Another doorway is timing. Many loops are kept alive by our compulsive speed. We respond before we've actually heard. We fix before we've fully seen. Insert a little time between impulse and action, not punishment. Just space. 5 slow breaths before you hit send. A walk around the block before you decide. In physics, less measurement allows evolution. In life, less reactivity allows intelligence. Space is where a kinder option can find you. And let's talk about permission. You are allowed to update your role in your own story. If you've been the rescuer, you're allowed to become a companion. If you've been the quiet one, you're allowed to speak once and trust silence to carry the rest. If you've been the latecomer, you're allowed to arrive on time without announcing who you used to be. The people around you may try to hand you yesterday's costume. They love the familiar. 2. Keep choosing the garment that fits the person you're becoming. With repetition, the world learns the new wardrobe. Finally, be gentle with the part of you that keeps pressing replay. It is young, and it is trying to keep you safe. Thank it for its service. Then invite it to look with you. Not for you. We're going to let today prove itself. You might say, we don't have to decide in advance how it ends. Feel how the air changes in the room when you grant that permission. It's subtle, like the river choosing a freer channel around the bend. not a miracle. Simply water. Doing what water does when you stop forcing it back upstream. This is how you step into another timeline without strain, by refusing to bully the present into being yesterday. By letting the scene be undecided long enough for grace to enter. By trading prediction for attention. Summary for sensation. Defense for breath. 1 new inch at a time. You arrive where repetition cannot follow. And when you glance back, the loop is still there, but you are not inside it anymore. You are here, in a day that is finally allowed to be itself. 5. Practical application. Clear intention. Gentle control. Think of intention as a lantern, not a spotlight. A spotlight interrogates. It hunts for flaws, floods the room, and leaves everyone squinting. A lantern guides. It throws a steady, human circle of light, a few steps ahead enough to see the path. Not so much that it steals the mystery from the journey. That's how I invite you to set intention bright enough to orient your day, soft enough to let life participate. When I first practiced this, I noticed how quickly I slipped from intention into surveillance. I'd decide, today I'll care for my body. And 15 minutes later, I'd be on the scale, calculating worth by ounces. Or I'd say, I'm building financial steadiness. And an hour later, I'd open the banking app again, as if the numbers could grow under my stare. It felt like diligence. It was, in truth, interference. The seed doesn't sprout faster because you keep peeling back the soil. Loving attention is not the same as anxious checking. So here is a gentler way. Begin in the body before you begin in the mind. Place your feet flat on the floor. Let one breath grow longer than usual. And ask quietly, without a clipboard, what would feel like alignment for me today? Not perfection, not performance. Alignment. You'll be surprised how simple the answer often is. Call the doctor you've been avoiding. Step outside before coffee. Write the first paragraph instead of the whole chapter. This is your lantern, a clear, kind heading you can actually walk toward. Now we talk about control. Control is a useful tool when it serves intention. It's exhausting when it becomes the master. Think of control like the dimmer switch on that lantern. You don't rip it from the wall. You learn to adjust it. There are moments to lift the light, pay the bill, show up on time, say no with a steady voice. And there are hours to lower it. Close the tab that tells you who you aren't. Let the email sit until your breath returns. Give a conversation space to end, without postmortems. Clear intention with gentle control says, I'll hold what's mine to hold, and I'll stop pretending I hold the tides. You might ask, but how do I know I'm not slipping into avoidance? The body will tell you. Compulsive checking has a flavor-tight jaw, shallow breath, eyes narrowed to pinpoints. Smart verification feels different, 2 slower breaths, a glance that confirms direction, and then a natural easing of the shoulders as you step forward. One says, prove it. The other says, good, keep going. Learn the difference by feel, not by argument. I remember a morning when I wrote 3 lines that mattered because I didn't bully myself into 6 pages that didn't. The intention was clear. I will move this story forward. And the control was gentle. I'll check in after 1 honest paragraph. That small cadence did more in an hour than my old marathons did in a day. It turns out not rushing is often the shortest route to completion. The way a river finds the sea, by refusing to sprint uphill. There's a place for metrics. Of course, they are tools, not tyrants. If you're rebuilding your health, you might weigh yourself once a week, not after each meal. If you're healing your finances, you might review expenses at a set time, not every time your heart thumps. If you're tending a relationship, you might ask for feedback when both of you have slept, not in the heat of a frayed evening. Rhythm matters more than frequency. A gardener waters when the soil asks, not every hour on the hour. Language helps here. The sentences you repeat set the thermostat of your day. I must control this. Heats the room until no one can breathe. I will steward what's mine, and let life do its part, warms without stifling. Try a simple phrase in the morning: I am available to the next honest step, and let it shape your choices. When the mind demands a forecast, return to the step you can actually take. When fear wants a guarantee, give the body a glass of water and a moment of sky. Most days, that's enough to keep faith alive. Real life offers ordinary places to practice. At the grocery store, you don't need to analyze every label. Choose the real food your grandmother would recognize. And go home. With your phone, you don't need to check for echoes of rejection. Send the message that is clean in you. Then put the device in another room while you make tea. With work, name the essential task and begin before you negotiate with the part of you that wants applause. The point is not to become careless. It is to become caring in a way that doesn't bruise the process. And when you slip, as all of us do, keep your repair simple. Notice the compulsion to check. Smile at it like an old habit that thinks it's protecting you. Then ask, what would trust do next? If the answer is verify once and move on, do that. If the answer is step away and breathe, do that. Over time, trust stops being a mood and becomes a method, a practical, repeatable way of moving through your hours. There is a sweetness in letting life meet you halfway. You still navigate, you still steer, but you stop dragging the boat along the shore. You allow the current to participate quietly, consistently carrying your small, faithful actions further than your worry ever could. The paradox is that gentle control produces stronger results, fewer reworks, fewer apologies, fewer nights spent wondering why all your effort didn't add up. So light the lantern. Name the direction out loud, in words your nervous system can believe. Take one step you can complete without violence. Give the work a corridor of time without interruption. Check in with the softness of a hand on a child's back. How are we doing? If the answer is keep going, keep going. If the answer is rest, rest. This is not laziness. This is listening. In the end, clarity and ease are not enemies. They are partners. Clarity chooses. Ease carries. Intention points the way. Gentle control keeps the path clear. And somewhere in the spaces where you stop proving and start participating, you will look up and realize that not doing anything in a hurry has quietly accomplished the very thing you tried so hard to force. Like rivers that no longer strain upstream, you arrive simply because you allowed yourself to flow. 6. You are not outside of reality. Begin with this. You're not looking at life through a window. You are the room it happens in. For years, I mistook myself for a camera on a tripod, panning left and right to record what the world was doing to me. I kept a catalog: this person's mistake, that twist of fate, another closed door, and I thought accuracy meant distance. But distance has a hidden cost. When you stand outside your own days, you can only react. Life arrives fully formed, and you scramble to protect yourself from it. The body learns to brace. The mind looks for exits. And somewhere along the way, you forget that you are not only the watcher, you are the field. You are the living space in which events take their shape. Think of water taking the form of a cup. The cup doesn't bully water into compliance. It simply offers a shape, and water, being water, follows. Consciousness works like that. When you are crouched in defense, jaw tight, shoulders up, the shape you offer is small and narrow, and reality dutifully pours itself into that mold. Conversations feel cramped. Schwas look limited. Even the sky seems lower. When you soften toward creation, eyes gentle, breath unhurried, you widen the vessel. The same world flows in, but it arranges itself differently. The right phrase arrives mid-sentence. A stranger smiles at the exact moment you needed human proof. A problem loosens when you're not trying to wrestle it into sense. It's not magic. It's participation. The field you become invites a different pattern to crystallize. I saw this most clearly in a grocery store of all places. I had long believed that crowds were hostile landscapes. Mes postures tight. Hurried. Apologizing for existing sent a silent message. I'm in the way. People responded accordingly. That night, I tried something small. Before reaching for a cart, I felt my feet. I let my shoulders fall a fraction. I allowed the idea that I belonged there. 2. The aisles didn't widen, but the field did. A man moved without irritation when I paused. A child's laughter didn't scrape my nerves. The checkout clerk looked up and met my eyes. Nothing dramatic. But the pattern changed because I did. The world took the shape of the room I was being, seen through the old lens. This sounds like blame. So it's my fault when things go wrong. That's not what I'm saying. Storms still come. Grief still visits. But there is a difference between standing in the rain with your fists clenched and standing in the rain with your palms open. One posture fights the sky. The other lets you feel the weather and choose a wiser next step umbrella. Shelter. A slower walk. The sky does not ask permission to be cloudy. What changes is the way reality organizes around the kind of space you are. On hard days, the body tells the story first. Protection is a reflex. The neck shortens. The breath lives high and fast. The eyes glaze or sharpen into suspicion. When you notice this, don't scold yourself for tensing. Offer the room a new shape. Lengthen the exhale until the ribs remember they can move. Soften the gaze just enough that the edges of things stop looking like knives. Let the tongue settle from the roof of the mouth. And watch how the mind sirens quiet by a few decibels. This is not self-help theater. It's physics with a human face. Coherence in here invites coherence out there. You become a steadier vessel. And life sensitive to containers pours differently. Language is part of the architecture. When you tell yourself, I'm at the mercy of this, the walls inch closer. When you say, I'm here with this, the ceiling lifts. One word shifts the center of gravity, from victim to participant. You don't have to pretend you like the moment. You only have to acknowledge that your manner of presence matters. In that acknowledgement, you reclaim the agency that panic pretends to protect but always steals. Relationships reveal this quickly. Enter a conversation, already armored, ready to defend, ready to be misunderstood, and notice how the dialogue arranges itself into skirmishes. Enter the same conversation with the quiet decision to be curious, really curious, not performative, and notice how different sentences appear. Curiosity is not agreement. It's a wider field. It changes the geometry of the room so new lines can be drawn between two human beings who keep forgetting they're on the same side of being human. Work responds to this. 2. There were days I sat at a desk like a hostage, demanding the page surrender a perfect paragraph. The page mirrored me, stiff, stingy, uncooperative. On the mornings I arrived as a collaborator. Let's see what wants to be written. The paragraph came in pieces I could assemble. The hour inside me changed the hour outside me. The job hadn't changed. The field had. You might wonder how this holds up when life is brutal illness, loss, the kind of endings you don't get over. I won't insult those seasons with easy sentences. I will say that even there, the field you are offers shapes to pain. Defense says, this must not be, and hardens around the wound until breath can't enter. Creation says, this is here, and begins to make a room where sorrow can lie down without swallowing the house. You light a candle. You accept soup. You let someone hold your name for a while. In that room, grief can move instead of multiply. The circumstances are still real. Your participation stops them from being your entire sky. If this feels abstract, try a simple afternoon experiment. Choose one ordinary errand, a bank line, a pharmacy pickup, a school run. And before you begin, decide the quality of space. You will be patient, warm, lightly humorous, clear, nothing saintly, just specific. Then see what patterns collect around that decision. Do not look for proof with clenched jaw. Let the evidence find you. Sometimes it's a door held open or a more honest conversation than you planned. Sometimes it's simply that your chest doesn't ache on the drive home. All of that counts. The field is learning its power. And when the day is over, replace the old report card. How many things went wrong? How many people didn't understand you with a gentler accounting? What kind of room was I? Where did I tighten and where did I widen? Where did I insist and where did I invite? This isn't a moral quiz. It's a way of noticing the architecture you carry. The one life keeps pouring itself into whether you notice or not. You are not a camera. You are not a pair of eyes pressed to the glass of fate. You are the glass and the light behind it. The warmth of the room and the doorway at its far end. When you move from defense to creation, when you stop bracing against the world and start shaping the space through which it moves, reality does not become obedient. It becomes responsive, like water finding the curve of a kinder vessel. Life learns your new shape and says yes. 7. From controlling outcomes to opening possibilities. Begin with a softer question. When life tightens in the chest, the mind reaches for a wrench. It has to go this way. We call that certainty strength, but often it's fear in nicer clothes. The more we insist on a single ending, the more we bully the present into a narrow corridor where beauty can't fit. I learned this leaning over a table of scattered plans, color-coded calendars, budgets, drafts, all of it tidy, none of it alive. I wasn't steering, I was strangling, and whatever I gripped me back. Control seems efficient until it isn't. It demands guarantees before it will take a step. It rehearses every line, then forgets how to listen. Control says, "Prove you're safe." And the world, obeying the tone, stiffens. People become roles. Days become checklists. Even miracles are told where to stand. When outcomes are pre-approved, life is forced to arrive in costume. And we miss the dear face underneath. Opening possibility is not passivity. It is a different posture, one that keeps the spine steady and the hands open. It starts with a question that widens the room. Is there a more elegant, more surprising, more fitting way? Elegance here does not mean fancy. It means true economy, less friction, more rightness. Surprise does not mean spectacle. It means relief, where we expected strain. Fitting does not mean perfect. It means proportionate to who you are now, not who fear says you must be. I saw this in the simplest of places. A conversation I wanted to go well. My plan was airtight bullet points. Evidence. Counter-arguments. I walked in armed, and the room put on armor. 2. Words ricocheted. Faces cooled. By the end, I had proven my point and lost the person. The next time, I tried possibility. I entered with a single intention. Stay kind and stay clear. And one guiding question in my pocket. What would make this easier for both of us? The answer arrived in real time, less defending, more asking, fewer paragraphs, more pauses. The outcome wasn't what my plan promised. It was better, smaller, humbler, oddly healing. We left without triumph, but with air in the day again. Possibility works on the body before it touches the calendar. Notice what must be this way does to your muscles, jaw tight, breath shallow, vision tunneled. That is the nervous system choosing a fight it doesn't need. When you soften the exhale, the tunnel becomes a hallway. When you lower your shoulders, doors become visible that were here all along. Options don't appear because the universe suddenly likes you. They appear because you are able to see again. Language can help. The controlling voice says, "Only this will do." The opening voice says, "This or something kinder." Try that sentence on a stubborn morning. I want this job, or something kinder. I want this apology, or something kinder. I want this plan to hold, or something kinder. You're not bargaining yourself into crumbs. You're giving the field permission to deliver a form that matches the essence you actually need: respect, stability, the momentum, without insisting on a single container. Control is attached to packaging. Possibility is faithful to substance. There is a practical art to asking better questions. Instead of, how do I force this through, try, where is there less friction? Instead of, how do I get them to agree, try, what truth can we both stand in without betrayal? Instead of, how do I finish everything today, try, what would move the whole? Project forward with the least strain. Good questions are like windows. They don't fix the weather. They let in more sky. Sometimes opening possibility means dignifying small moves. Control prefers grand gestures. You overhaul the diet, rewrite the strategy, renovate the house. Possibility likes the hinge changes, adding a glass of water before coffee, making one honest phone call, deleting the app that steals the hour after sunset. These don't look heroic. They look human, but they tilt the axis. 1 degree of kindness at the right place in the day can steer you miles from the old shore. There will be days when the old grip returns. You'll feel the urge to refresh the account again, to push the conversation past what it can bear, to schedule your heart into submission. Meet the impulse with the same question that opens the field. Is there a more elegant, more surprising, more fitting way? Often the answer is to do less, but better, to say one true line and stop, to let silence finish a sentence you would have ruined with one more layer of varnish. Let's be honest. 2. Sometimes outcomes matter. A surgery must succeed. A bill must be paid. A deadline must be met. Opening possibility doesn't mean neglecting reality. It means partnering with it. You prepare well. You ask for help. You hold your part with integrity, and you leave the rest alone. This is not indifference. It's reverence for the piece of the puzzle you cannot see from here. Control tries to man the entire orchestra with 2 hands. Possibility knows there is a conductor you are not. One evening on a quiet road, I watched a river meet a fallen branch. The water didn't argue. It didn't launch a lawsuit against gravity. It tested an angle, then another, and then almost lazily found a path around the dark wood, carrying leaves past the obstacle, with hardly a seam. That is the intelligence we share when we stop insisting. We test another angle. We let our life be clever on our behalf. We honor the current that moves with less injury and more courage. You might fear that loosening your grip will cost you your edge. It won't. It will sharpen it in a different way. The edge you'll keep is attention, the kind that notices the liveliest path, the most humane pace, the word that heals, instead of winning the argument. You will still care deeply. You will still show up, but you'll stop dragging the future toward you, like a stubborn suitcase. You'll invite it to walk beside you. And strangely, it will. So when the day tightens and the verdict rises, it must be like this pause. Put a hand on your chest. Let one breath be wider than the thought. Then ask, softly, is there a kinder configuration available? Wait long enough to hear the smallest yes. Follow that. Yes. One step. It might look like calling a friend instead of conquering a fear alone. It might look like taking the train instead of the freeway. It might look like leaving 3 minutes early and arriving without apology. These are not miracles, but they are how miracles travel on the humble back of permission. Control wants to be right. Possibility wants to be true. When you switch allegiance, the world doesn't always give you what you demanded, but it brings you what you can live with, love through, and grow from. And on the days you feel the river in you stop straining upstream, you'll know you didn't lower your standards. You raised your trust. You didn't settle. You opened. And life, relieved, rushed in. 8. Locating the timeline by inner feeling. Begin with the smallest proof. Your breath no longer has to fight for space. People often expect a new timeline to announce itself with fireworks, sudden breakthroughs, doors swinging open, the world rearranging in visible ways. Sometimes it does. More often, it comes in quietly. Like a change in weather, you first notice on your skin. The landscape hasn't shifted yet. The air has. You're carrying your body differently. Not because you made a grand decision, but because something inside you has unclenched. Less bracing, more light. It's subtle, the difference between walking through water and walking beside it. That felt shift is not your imagination. It's the earliest evidence you've stepped into a different stream. In my own transitions, the externals lagged behind like a late train. I would wake with a softness that didn't match the inbox. I would speak a kinder sentence into a room still tuned to yesterday's argument. I would choose one dignified action and watch the world shrug as if nothing had happened. The mind, impatient, wanted to use that lag as a verdict. See, nothing changed. But change has a tempo. You can feel the music long before the band appears on stage. And if you keep swaying to that music, the room eventually hears it too. Think of a pendulum that has been swinging at a frantic pace. When you move it into calmer air, it doesn't freeze instantly. It slows, settles, finds a new center. Your life is like that. The body registers the new field first, jaw unhooks, belly warms. Breath spreads sideways into the ribs. Then emotion follows, less static in the chest. More room around old thoughts. Finally, the circumstances catch up. The conversation goes differently than it used to. The opportunity that never returned writes back. The problem that resisted you for months meets you halfway. The outside is not ignoring you. It is sinking. To live this well, you need a loyalty to feeling that is stronger than your loyalty to habit. When the old proof-seeking voice rises, if nothing outside has changed, nothing changed. Meet it with a steadier truth. Inside is where the needle moves first. This is not a slogan. It's anatomy. The nervous system recovers coherence before behavior becomes new. Behavior becomes new before outcomes do. Outcomes gather last. Like birds joining a current that has been forming all morning. There are gentle ways to keep your footing while the world takes its time. Begin each day by noticing one unarguable sign that your interior has shifted. Maybe it's the way your hand reaches for water before the phone. Maybe it's the tenderness that visits when you pass the mirror. Maybe it's simply that you pause half a second longer before you answer. And in that half second, you hear yourself. These are not small things. They are the coordinates of your new ground. As you move through your hours, protect these coordinates, the way a musician protects tempo. When the old rhythm tries to pull you into a rush, breathe in a way that lengthens the measure. When someone else's urgency asks you to sprint, let your feet answer for you steady. Even human, you're not being stubborn. You're letting the new timeline finish writing its signature through your body. If you abandon it to win a moment, you'll have to start again. If you stay with it through a few awkward beats, the room begins to dance with you. I remember a week when breathe and trust felt like a ridiculous prescription. The job offer didn't arrive. The apology didn't come. The bill did, but something in me wouldn't let the old panic take the wheel. I kept tending to small rightness, good food, clean desk, honest email, sunlight on the eyelids for no reason at all. On Friday, nothing spectacular happened. On Monday, one conversation turned a half degree. On Wednesday, I noticed I was humming while washing dishes. That's all. And yet by the end of the month, the things that never budged had moved 2 quiet steps in my direction. The lag didn't mean I was wrong. It meant reality was catching up to who I had already become. Language can help you hold this line. When someone asks, "So, any changes yet?" you don't have to manufacture evidence. You can say, "I'm settled in a better pace." and the rest is finding me. Or, the inside is clear, the outside is aligning. These sentences don't brag or beg. They keep your allegiance where it belongs on the felt truth that invited this new chapter in the first place. What about the days when you can't feel anything but doubt? Then you practice fidelity. Fidelity to one small action that belongs to the new you, the walk you promised yourself, the boundary you drew with love, the bedtime you keep, even when no one is watching. The point is not to bully the world into changing back. It's to refuse to betray the texture you know is right. Texture is everything here. The new timeline has a feel conversation soften sooner. Urgency loses its glamour. Beauty becomes easier to notice. Keep collecting these textures, the way you'd collect seashells on a quiet beach. They don't look like much in your pocket. Then one afternoon you pour them onto the table and realize you've been building a coastline. There's also generosity to extend to the outer world while it lags. The person who still addresses you by your old name, the unreliable one, the rescuer, the latecomer may need a few repetitions to hear your new tone. Let them speak from the steadiness you've found, not from the injury of being misunderstood. Correction given from injury restarts the loop. Clarity given from peace invites companionship. If they cannot join you, you're still held. The timeline you chose will furnish new company. A word about patience. It is not a grim endurance test. It is a warm room you offer to the process. Patience says, I know what it feels like to be home, and I will keep setting the table until the guests arrive. While you wait, live. Hang the laundry with care. Eat the peach over the sink. Write the paragraph that is ready even if the book is not. The lag becomes less of a hallway and more of a hearth. And when the outer signs do come, and they will greet them without the feverish triumph of finally, meet them as confirmation. Not salvation. Salvation already happened. The moment your breath stopped bracing. Confirmation is simply the world nodding back. I see what you became. I'm ready to match it. So if today still looks like yesterday, but something in you feels different, don't throw that away. That softness, that unforced rhythm, that small sense of belonging to your own life, these are the coordinates. Stand there long enough, and the scenery learns your name. Stand there with kindness, and the people who can meet you will find the door. Stand there with ordinary faith and watch how quietly the future walks in. Exactly on time for the new you that arrived first. 9. Mutual influence in the collective field. Begin with a simple kindness. Give people a room to grow in. The way you look at someone is not neutral. It lands on their skin like weather. Sometimes a cold draft that makes them tighten. Sometimes a sunlit window that warms them into movement. We pretend our opinions are private, but attention leaks. It tones the air between us. When you see a person as a fixed character, the selfish one, the flake, the difficult parent, the boss who never listens, your gaze becomes a mold. Without meaning to, you invite them to pour themselves into that shape, not because they are only that, but because the human nervous system is exquisitely responsive to the expectations it feels. The field we share is sensitive. It remembers the names we call each other. I learned this lesson years ago with a friend who had been through too much too soon. I loved him, but I kept watching for relapse. Every time he was late, I tightened. Every time he lost his phone, I sighed in advance. I thought I was being realistic. In truth, I was holding a mirror that returned to him only one face, the unreliable one. Then one afternoon, I tried an experiment. I met him at the cafe without my old forecast. I looked at him the way I look at a sunrise. I don't own curious. Warm. Unhurried. I asked different questions less. Did you mess up? And more. Where does it hurt and what feels strong today? He didn't turn into a new person in an hour, but something in the conversation opened. He told me one true thing he'd never said aloud. The next week, he showed up early, eyes bright. I didn't fix him. I simply gave him a larger mirror. He grew toward it. This is not magic thinking. It's ordinary biology. A body under suspicion contracts. Shoulders narrow. Breath shortens. Voice changes key. A body that is met with trust explores. The chest widens. The eyes soften. Language becomes more honest. When you meet someone as a problem, they spend their energy defending. When you meet them as a presence, they spend that energy participating. The difference is the field you create by the quality of your regard. In families, this is why a single member who changes their stance, less bracing, more listening, can alter the tone of a whole dinner. In teams, this is why a manager who believes in learning over punishment quietly increases creativity without a single memo. The collective field updates from the inside out. There is a practical art to offering a wider mirror. It begins with softening the verdict that arrives first. Notice the nickname you secretly use for someone: drama magnet, stone wall, know-it-all. Don't argue with it. Add one truer layer, and also a human being who wants to belong and feel safe. Let your eyes adjust to that second sentence. Then look for evidence that supports it. One careful sentence they speak. One act of steadiness. One moment of effort you can dignify. When you name these things aloud, not as flattery, but as clear, noticing, you change the room. Encouragement here is not cheerleading. It is accurate attention to what is trying to grow. You can practice this in the smallest places. At the grocery store line, where impatience ripples backward like a quiet storm. Become the still patch in the water. Lift your gaze. Give a half smile to the harried cashier. Let your shoulders fall. You didn't deliver a sermon. Yet the person behind you often relaxes without knowing why. On a bus, if a child is loud and a parent looks ashamed, meet the scene with permission in your face. The kind that says, "We have room for you. You will not fix the world in a morning, but you will alter the weather in your square foot of it." This is not nothing. Fields change by patches. What about the people who repeatedly harm? Offering a wider mirror does not mean erasing boundaries. In fact, clear boundaries make your presence safer for the whole field. You can see someone is capable of better and still step back when they are not interested in becoming it. You can refuse the role of savior without adopting the role of judge. No spoken from dignity contributes coherence to the collective. It teaches the room what is and isn't nourishment. In times of conflict, try replacing the impulse to diagnose with the discipline to describe. Instead of "you never listen," say, "When I speak, I feel rushed. Can we slow this down for 2 minutes?" Description invites collaboration. Diagnosis invite defense. Description keeps the field open long enough for a different pattern to form between you. Perhaps you will still disagree, but you will not have frozen each other into caricatures. You'll have remained two living beings, capable of surprise. Communities rise or fall on this kind of seeing. In workplaces, one person who assumes competence draws competence out of quiet corners. In neighborhoods, one elder who treats teenagers as stewards rather than threats changes how those teenagers carry themselves down the block. In faith circles, one congregant who refuses gossip and practices blessing behind people's backs makes more peace than 1,000 anxious prayers. None of this is glamorous. It is the slow architecture of trust. Language can help us hold the field. Try speaking about people in ways that leave them a future. Swap. He's hopeless with money, for he's learning steadier habits. Trade. She always explodes for. She's figuring out how to speak without armor. You're not rewriting reality. You're refusing to trap it. Words are invitations. Use them to invite growth. And if you ever doubt that your regard matters, watch what happens when you are seen well by someone else. Remember the teacher who saw your effort before you had results. The friend who held your name gently when you had forgotten how to hold it. The stranger who looked at you as if you belonged. Did you not stand a little taller? Did the next hour not feel more possible? That is the collective field in action, ordinary, sacred, deeply human. So today, let your presence be a generous mirror. See people as in motion. Name their efforts without putting them on trial. Offer the steady weather of curiosity instead of the storm of conclusion. Where you must draw a line, draw it with a hand that doesn't shake. Where you can widen the room, widen it by an inch. If enough of us keep doing this at kitchen tables, cash registers, staff meetings, bus stops, the air we share changes. Suspicion loses its glamour. Defensiveness grows tired. The field upgrades itself, almost shyly, the way dawn lifts into day without permission from any of us. And we look around, quieter in our chests, and realize we helped, not by winning an argument or converting a crowd, but by offering the kind of gaze that lets people remember what they are, not characters on a fixed page, but consciousness opening. Together. 10. The silent window, a space beyond measuring. There is a kind of quiet that doesn't ask for proof. In a world that counts everything, steps, likes, calories, dollars, hours, we forget the value of what cannot be tallied. We strap a ruler to the soul and wonder why it won't grow. But growth has its own dignity. It happens in the places our numbers can't enter, in moments we don't photograph, in rooms where no dashboard is blinking. I began to understand this on a morning when I did nothing remarkable, no goals, no metrics, just a cup of tea held with two hands, and the soft decision to let 5 minutes be unproductive. Something unclenched. The day seemed to recompose itself around a silence I had neglected. It wasn't empty, it was generous. Call these minutes your silent windows, brief intervals where you stop measuring. You turn off the notifications that peck at your attention. You set the scale behind a door. You let the mirror be a mirror, not a judge. You release the question, how am I doing? And let a calmer one arrive. How am I being at the level of energy? These windows act like decoherence in reverse. All the rigid patterns loosen. The system leaves its stuck state, and possibility returns to a soft hum. If the language of quantum life feels too large, try a simpler picture. Snow in a globe, settling after you stop shaking it. The scene was always there. It just needed stillness to appear. The mind will resist at first. It thinks constant checking is love. It thinks vigilance will keep you safe. But surveillance is not care. It is a kind of friction that overheats the day. The first silent windows felt awkward for me, like walking into a chapel without knowing the rituals. I kept reaching for the phone to prove the world still knew my name. I kept wanting to fix something to earn my right to rest. The habit was loud, so I gave the silence a structure. I chose times that already had a natural hush after waking, before meals, just before bed, and placed a small window there. Nothing grand, 2 minutes with the screen face down, 1 minute noticing the breath, a few heartbeats of sunlight on closed eyes at the sink. That was enough to show me this silence is not absence. It is a presence that doesn't perform. Inside a silent window, the body remembers its pace. The exhale lengthens as if someone opened a back door. The jaw softens. The eyes stop narrowing the world into a task. In that physiology of ease, the nervous system updates its story. No, we are not in danger. Yes, we are allowed to sense again. Sensing is different from scanning. Scanning hunts. Sensing receives. From sensing, wiser impulses arise. The phone call you actually want to make. The glass of water you forgot to drink. The sentence that says the truth without the extra armor. The window doesn't make decisions for you. It lets decisions arrive unmarred by panic. You will worry that you are wasting time. But measuring devours time far faster than silence ever could. How many hours vanish into the loop of checking, comparing, correcting, refreshing? A 5-minute window returns more vitality than an afternoon of anxious productivity. It also changes the texture of what follows. Work done after a silent window tends to be cleaner. You do the essential part instead of performing the whole circus. Conversation after a silent window tends to be kinder. You hear the person rather than rehearsing your turn. Even grief breathes differently. It becomes a companion that sits beside you instead of a flood that drags you under. These windows also protect what is trying to be born in you. Creation of a paragraph, a boundary, a new habit begins fragile. Too much attention, too soon is like stage lights on a seed. The silent window is a dark room where images develop, a womb where cells divide without commentary. You don't need to understand the mechanism to honor it. You only need to keep meddling hands gentle and noise at the door. If you share a home or a workplace, consider making the window visible without turning it into a rule. A candle lit at the corner of a desk. Headphones worn not for music, but for quiet. A note by the kettle, 2 minutes of no measuring. Let others see that this is not withdrawal. It is hygiene. Just as we wash our hands to keep the body clear, we rinse the mind in silence to keep the field coherent. Over time, the people around you may begin to respect these intervals. Some will even borrow them. The collective benefits: rooms with built-in quiet generate fewer sharp words and more honest ones. Boundaries matter here. The phone is clever at smuggling measurement back into the room disguised as urgency. Put it on a chair across the space. Face down. Let the algorithms find someone else for 5 minutes. If you must use a timer, set it and turn away. Do not watch the seconds. That is counting in church. Let your breath tell you when the window has done its work. Often you will know by a small thaw somewhere behind the ribs, by a thought that arrives without teeth, by the sudden tenderness with which you regard the ordinary steam from a cup, dust in a beam of light, the crease in your own palm. There will be days when silence brings up what you were avoiding: old fear, ungrieved sorrow, and honest anger. Do not call the window a failure. Call it a door. Sit with what appears, as you would sit with a tired friend near, wordless, unafraid. If the feeling asks for movement, walk. If it asks for paper, write. If it asks for witness, call someone who knows how to listen. The point isn't to remain quiet at all costs. It is to stop measuring long enough to hear what life is actually asking. Over time, these windows change your allegiance. You shift from proving to participating, from harvesting to tending, from extracting to receiving. You begin to trust the intervals between efforts. You discover that after a window of silence, the next step is often smaller and truer than the one you would have chosen in noise. This is how possibility returns to superposition in a human life, not as a theory, but as a felt expansion of choices that weren't visible under the glare of scrutiny. If you need one simple invitation, take this. Choose one ordinary portal doorways. The first touch of the steering wheel, the moment before a reply, and let each be a silent window for the length of a single gentle breath. Don't count it. Feel it. Let the exhale finish by itself. Then re-enter your doing with the softness you found there. You will not become less effective. You will become accurate. And you will notice, with a kindness that surprises you, how much of your day didn't require measuring to become meaningful. Silence isn't a retreat from life. It is the room where life prepares its next offering. Guard a few such rooms in your hours. Step into them as you are no performance. No report card. Step out carrying less noise and more knowing. In that humble exchange, reality learns your new shape, and the day, relieved of its constant inspection, remembers how to move. 11. The I am language as a transmitter. Begin with a quiet truth: the words I am don't just report your weather, they set your climate. Most of us learn to speak about ourselves like sportscasters calling the play as it happens. Describing what we see: I am tired. I am broken. I am behind. It sounds honest, even humble. But over years of living and listening, I've noticed something subtler at work. I am doesn't only describe, it designs. It's a little transmitter that tunes your inner station and invites the world to harmonize. Say I am stuck, and your body obligingly stiffens. Your attention narrows, and your choices dim. Say I am becoming, and the chest loosens. The jaw softens, and a corridor you couldn't see before begins to take shape. Zama kitchen, same bills, same sky, different climate. This isn't about pretending, it's about precision. There's a world of difference between a performance and a permission. When you whisper, I am okay, while every fiber screams otherwise. Your nervous system calls you a liar and withdraws its trust. But when you say, I am hurting, and I am held, something true in you leans forward. The sentence doesn't erase pain. It builds a room where pain can breathe without owning the house. I am is a frame, not a verdict. It holds the picture you want to step into while admitting the colors that are on the brush today. Think of a radio dial. Old labels are like static, familiar, insistent, and oddly comforting in their predictability. You can keep broadcasting, I am the anxious one, and you will keep hearing evidence that fits the tune, the rushed reply, the tight shoulders, the sleepless clock. Or you can begin quietly, faithfully, to broadcast another station. I am learning steadiness. I am arriving differently. I am a person who gives things time. The first few days, the new music crackles. Static argues for its throne. But hold the dial with a gentle hand, and the melody finds you. I am is the hand on that dial. I remember standing at a mirror I did not like. But I have old names. I am worn out. I am late in life to be changing. I am failing at simple things. Each sentence tightened my face a fraction. The way a room shrinks when the blinds are pulled at noon. Out of stubbornness or mercy, I'm still not sure. I tried a different tone. I am in repair. I am allowed a kinder pace. I am someone who listens to my body now. Nothing in the glass transformed. But my stance did. I made tea and drank it as if I deserved to be warm. I answered one message with care, not apology. That night I slept. The mirror didn't need to approve. The climate had shifted enough for life to grow in small, green ways. If you live with others, you know how contagious these broadcasts are. A home learns the sentences you repeat. I am always the one who fixes things. Trains resentment as faithfully as a gym trains muscle. I am willing to ask for help teaches the room to bring chairs when you host grief in teams. I am the only adult here turns colleagues into children. I am a steward of clarity, invites adults to appear. The collective listens to the strongest transmitter. And most days, the strongest transmitter is the one that is most consistent, not the loudest. Consistency is how climate becomes weather. You might worry that kinder I am statements are a way of dodging responsibility. I would argue the opposite. They create the conditions where responsibility becomes sustainable. I am disciplined does not mean I am a machine. It means I will do the next right thing without abusing myself on the way. I am generous doesn't mean I never say no. It means I offer what I can without betraying what I must protect. These are not slogans. They are agreements you live into, one unglamorous act at a time. On difficult days, begin with a sentence you can carry. If I am confident rings hollow. Choose, I am willing. If I am healed feels false. Try I am healing. If I am fearless is a costume. Wear I am brave enough for this hour. The nervous system recognizes willingness as credible and moves toward it. Credibility is the bridge between language and life. Cross it, and your words stop being spells you don't believe and become steps you can walk. Pay attention. 2. To the I am phrases that slip out when you're not listening. The private mutter at the sink, the sigh in the car, the joke you make at your own expense 3 times a week. These are not harmless. They are background scripts that run your posture, your tone, your choices, Catch one and turn its face a few degrees toward mercy. I am so stupid becomes, I am learning out loud. I am a mess becomes I am in transition. I am too much becomes, I am intense because I care. You haven't painted over truth. You've given truth enough oxygen to grow into wisdom. There is a bodily way to help the language land. Put a hand where the sentence lives in the chest if it's about courage. In the belly, if it's about trust. In the throat if it's about voice. Speak softly enough that you could believe yourself. Let the exhale finish without rush. Notice the smallest physical agreement, the half millimeter of space behind the breastbone. The warmth beneath the palm. The lessening of the frown. That is the transmitter tuning. You're not manufacturing belief. You're noticing resonance. If faith wavers, borrow a bridge phrase. I am available to. It's humble and mighty. I am available to a kinder timeline. I am available to being surprised by ease. I am available to seeing this person with fresh eyes. Availability doesn't force outcomes. It opens doors. It asks life to meet you halfway, and means it. And when you inevitably forget and speak the old weather, when I am stuck flies out before you remember your station, don't scold yourself. Amend the sentence in place. I am stuck for now. I am angry, and I am safe. I am scared, and I am not alone. The conjunction is not semantic sugar. It is an honest doorway between states, and we walk through it more gracefully when we don't slam it. In time, you'll notice that the world starts sending back confirmations, a conversation that goes gentler than it used to, an invitation that fits the person you are becoming, a morning that arrives without the old dread chasing it. Call these echoes, not proofs. Proof makes you beg the mirror to approve you. Echoes remind you that your voice carries. So tonight, before the lights go out, give yourself one sentence you can love without faking. I am someone who keeps choosing the next kind step. Let it rest in the dark like a seed. Sleep as if the soil knows what to do. And in the morning, honor that sentence with one small act that matches its tone. Over days and weeks, you'll look back and realize your life didn't change because you shouted a new identity into being. It changed because you tuned your transmitter and kept sending a steady song. The melody gathered companions. The climate became a home, and the words I am stopped being a report and became a way through. 12. Quantum Zeno and the habit of constant checking. Begin with a small confession. The more I watched, the less my life moved. Counting can be a kindness when it keeps a rhythm, steps for stamina, dollars for stewardship, repetitions for strength. But counting can also become a cage. The moment we turn measurement into identity, I am my numbers, we press a finger to the pause button of our own becoming. Physics offers a mirror for this human habit, the Quantum Zeno Effect. Measure a delicate system too frequently, and you hold it near the same state. The very act of observing interrupts evolution. In ordinary life, constant checking does the same. We stare at the scale and instruct the body to shrink into shame. We refresh the bank app and order our nervous system to contract into scarcity. We scan for likes and ask our heart to live on applause. We tally mistakes as if perfection could be bullied into existence. The music can't start because we will not lift our finger. I know the seduction. Checking promises safety. If I monitor everything, nothing will surprise me. But what we call safety often smuggles in a deeper fear, the fear of trusting momentum. We cannot micromanage. The conductor's wisdom is another kind. She lifts the baton to set the tempo. Then she lets the orchestra play. A flick here, a cue there, and long stretches of generous silence while the music breathes on its own. That is the stance to cultivate with measurement, precise signals when needed, and a gracious stepping back so life can perform the part it knows better than we do. Notice what chronic measuring does to the body. The jaw tightens, the breath stays narrow, the eyes narrow, too, as if the world must pass through a keyhole to be allowed. The mind shrinks to fit the readout. Days lose their shape and become dashboards. Even joy gets audited, counted, compared, converted into data that can be judged. This is not care. It's surveillance. Surveillance wears you down. Care steadies you. If you've lived long in the country of counting, start gently. You do not have to throw away every tool. You only have to learn when to put it down. Replace the loop of checking with intervals of trust. Set a cadence that respects reality and protects tenderness. Weigh once a week in the same soft light. Then let your body be a home, not a scorecard. Review finances on a calm afternoon with tea. Then let your day be a room with windows, not a vault. Look at your creative metrics at the end of a cycle. Then return to the paragraph, the brushstroke, the rehearsal, the living work. Where numbers can't lead, you will feel the temptation to pique the same itch a baker feels to open the oven door before the loaf has set. Remember what happens when heat escapes. The dough collapses, not because it was weak, but because it needed you to trust the chemistry you already began. Trust is a muscle. It grows in the dark between glances. There's a story I keep in my pocket for the hours I want to refresh the screen. A friend was relearning how to walk after an injury. At first, he counted every step: 10 to the mailbox, 12 to the oak, 20, back until frustration replaced gratitude. His therapist gave him a new assignment: walk by rhythm, not by numbers. Hum a song. He balked, then tried. The first days felt reckless, like riding a bike without hands. But something softened. He stopped staring at the pavement for proof he was improving, and started feeling the swing of his arms, the way light fell on the neighbor's porch. 3 weeks later, he realized the oak no longer required a rest. The progress had been quiet, recorded not in totals, but in texture. The ledger of life had expanded beyond columns. Language helps retrain the habit. Catch the sentences that recruit your identity to serve a meter. I'm the kind of person who has to track everything. See if you can soften it to something truer and freer. I'm the kind of person who keeps a wise rhythm, or when the mind insists. If I don't check, you'll fall behind. Answer with the adult in you. If I keep checking, I won't move. These are not slogans. They are boundary lines drawn inside the head where urgency used to live rent-free. You may ask, but what if the stakes are high? When precision matters medicine, safety. Deadlines measure well. Then lay the instrument down. High stakes do not require high panic. In fact, panic scrambles. Accuracy, calm attention. Like a conductor's ear. Here's what the music needs, and signals cleanly. Afterward, step back again. We were not built to live at the lip of a stopwatch. On ordinary mornings, practice becoming porous to life again. Put the phone in another room while you make breakfast. Let the kettles rise and hush be enough data for a minute. When you feel your hand reach for the pocket where the device waits, place the other hand over your chest and count exactly one breath, but not with numbers, with presence in and out, in and out. Measure by feeling for a moment, not by digits. You will sense the system widening. A corridor appears where before there was only a wall of not enough. The artistry of living is not anti-metric. It is metric in service of music. A drummer taps the tempo, so the band can play with soul. He is not a tyrant. He's a timekeeper who loves the song more than the count. Be that for yourself. Set the cue at 9. I begin. Give a gentle downbeat at noon. I review. Then let the melody have you. Let conversation stretch past the stopwatch, because someone needed those extra human minutes. Let a walk last longer, because your knees, not your calendar, asked for one more block. Let the paragraph end when the sentence finally sighs. That's enough. Not when the word count says, you've earned your rest. And when you slip, and you will return without drama, smile at the part of you that thinks love is a spreadsheet. Thank it for trying to protect you. Then ask a humbler question. If I trusted the process for the next hour, what would I do? Do that. And resist the urge to look sideways for applause. The applause that matters is the feeling of breath moving easier, of shoulders no longer wearing invisible armor, of time becoming a companion again instead of a courtroom. The truth is simple and stubborn. Measurement is a tool. It is not your face. When you use it like a conductor uses time signal, release. The orchestra of your days finds its own intelligence. Sections listen to one another. Crescendos arrive without strain. Silences become part of the song. And somewhere in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, you will realize the music has begun not because you forced it, but because you lifted your finger from pause and trusted what you set in motion to play. Conclusion. The quiet doorway. Begin simply. You are not chasing a miracle. You are the doorway it chooses to walk through. I say this as someone who spent years trying to earn permission to belong to my own life. I measured. I defended. I performed. And the more I tried to prove my worth, the further I drifted from the strength that was already here, the kind that arrives when you stop arguing with the moment and start inhabiting it. Presence is not a trick. It is a posture. It changes the temperature of a room. The way a window opened in spring makes the same four walls feel newly possible. When you release the need to control every note, the song has space to begin. If you listen closely, breakthrough rarely sounds like fireworks. It sounds like a fuller exhale. It looks like a softer jaw. An honest sentence spoken once. A decision made at human speed instead of fear's pace. It's the moment you ask a better question. Is there a kinder, the wiser way, and accept the quiet answer that was waiting behind the noise? It's the day you speak an accurate I am. Not to decorate reality, but to tune your instrument to a truer pitch. I am in repair. I am becoming. I am available to be surprised by ease. Let your life be guided by a gentler rule of thumb, less obsessive measuring, more conscious presence. That doesn't mean carelessness. It means care, without the bruise of surveillance. Set your intention like a lantern, clear enough to see the path, tender enough not to blind you to the scenery. Then live by the gardener's rhythm. Tend. Then trust. Prepare the soil with one clear act. Water when the day asks, not when panic demands. Step back so the unseen work can happen out of sight. Growth, like grace. Que préfère privacy. Guard a few windows of silence. Small, ordinary gaps in the day where you put the ruler down. 2 minutes before you open the phone. 3 breaths before you answer. A quiet pause at the sink while the kettle sighs. Those intervals are not empty. They are the womb of your next right step. In that hush, the system you call me slips out of its freeze and remembers how to move. And when language returns, let I am be your transmitter rather than your jailer. Choose sentences your nervous system can believe, and say them softly enough that trust can hear you. You'll notice something then. Reality is less an obstacle course and more an orchestra waiting for a cue. Outcomes respond to the quality of the space you are. When you stop conducting with clenched fists, the music doesn't rebel, it breathes. Conversations find friendlier routes. Work becomes cleaner because you do the essential part instead of staging the whole circus. Even sorrow sits differently. It lowers its voice and lets you eat and sleep. And the collective field listens. When one person truly changes their music, the room takes note. The child calms because your eyes told the truth there is time. The meeting softens because your tone chose description over diagnosis. A friend tells you one honest thing they've never said. Because you offered a mirror wide enough to hold their becoming, you didn't convert anyone. You altered the weather. That is how cultures turn by inches, by presence, by the steady refusal to freeze each other into yesterday's names. If you want a closing practice, let it be embodied. Breathe once as if the breath belongs to you. Place a hand on the chest, and feel the warmth you keep offering others finally arrive at your own door. Speak slowly, so the words have a chance to land. I am available for a kinder, wiser timeline. Notice how the shoulders answer. Notice the half-millimeter of space behind the breastbone you didn't have a moment ago. That space is not abstract. It is the corridor through which the next faithful action walks. From here, take one small, decisive step. Not a grand vow, just a humane move that matches your new music. Straighten the desk so the hour can work. Drink water before you negotiate with your doubt. Send a message that is clear and kind, and then put the phone down. Step outside, and let the sky adjust your scale of what matters. Call this obedience to the present. Call it tenderness with momentum. Call it what you like, as long as you keep choosing it. Because in the end, reality is not a machine to dominate. It is a coordinated song rising from within you, meeting the world's larger rhythm. When your inner tempo shifts, the choreography follows. The dance changes not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed the music to play. And somewhere, in a room you used to escape, you look around and realize nothing flashy happened. Yet everything did. The air is clearer. The pace is truer. The door you were pressing on is quietly open. Step through,